Hi everyone, welcome to another video from Neovim series. Today I want to talk about AI assisted coding or in general workflow in Neovim. But first, if you're new, thank you for watching the video. Thank you for visiting the channel. I typically create videos around Neovim, Kubernetes and other cloud native stuff. If you're a subscriber, thank you for supporting the channel. Let's get started. So the idea behind this video is to first understand what is AI-assisted coding in general and specifically in Neovim, how to set it up, what plugins to use, what are the practical use cases, and answer a question if Neovim is still relevant in the age of AI, alongside other editors. So what is AI-assisted coding? Let's define it. So first of all, AI-assisted coding is really like having somebody coding with you. You gotta be very peculiar how you say and what you say, how you communicate your intent. A little bit more on this later. The coding itself can be assisted by having code completions. It of course learned from a vast code base. The large language model behind the scenes has all the data, good and bad, from Stack Overflow and so on. It can also adapt somewhat to your coding style, which is interesting. Other tools that we will look at do things like help generate functions, write documentation, create algorithms, explain code. So there's quite a lot that they can do. They're not perfect, but they are here to stay, and every day we see improvements. So it's good to check them out. And the goal really of using those tools is to reduce repetitive tasks. I always think about it as another abstraction layer on top of what we already have. So we have some more generic abstraction layer with it. They should not replace thinking and creativity. I did this mistake at the beginning myself. It took me a while to get out of this loop, but it's very important to use those tools correctly when they should be used. All right, enough the parenting. Let's jump into Neovim. So there are quite a few plugins, and the Neovim plugin ecosystem is really alive, vibrant. There's quite a lot of stuff happening. So first is Copilot. If you are a contributor to an open source project, I think Copilot is for free. Otherwise, it's something like $10 per month. There are open source alternatives. I don't remember the name. It's Codium or something like that. I use Copilot. It's for free for me, but it is where you have the code completion. And it quite well integrates with Neovim. By the way, I'll show you all those things in practice, how you could use them in actual coding scenario. ChatGPT nvim, I used to use this plugin and then I replaced it with gp.nvim. In my opinion, it's slightly better, has abstractions that I like more, and has a user interface and developer experience that is simply better. But those plugins are very similar. They essentially bring OpenAI and I believe now other models to Neovim. Gen nvim, a really cool project from a person that also has a YouTube channel. It's a really great channel. I strongly suggest you to check him out. I'll link his channel in the video description. But this is essentially a wrapper around open source large language models that you can download via Ollama. So Meta, formerly Facebook, created Ollama, which is an open source model, and they created a way to pull those models and actually run them on your machine. I have them installed as well. I'll show you later how they work. And finally, a plugin that actually I don't use because it has default key bindings that you cannot override, and I think there's an issue to remedy it. But what it does, it wraps a tool called Aider. It's a really powerful but also quite confusing tool. It is essentially like Copilot chat, that you can chat with your files and perform various operations. So it's not limited to a single file. It actually expands to the whole repository. But I am using it without a plugin because it's just a wrapper. I'll show you this later as well. All right, so let's jump to the demo part. So I've divided the usage of AI in Neovim specifically, but also it applies to other editors, into a few subcases. So first we have code completion. Here where various copilots come in play, so GitHub Copilot and others, and they essentially, you can think of them as auto-completion on steroids. So you have a very elaborate auto-completion. Copilot tries to guess what you want to do, and sometimes it gets it right, sometimes wrong. I had it on for a long time, but now my default is to have it off and then only switch it on and start when I really need it. So let's see how it could look in action. So here I have a simple Python file, and Copilot works really well with comments. So here I have suggest the implementation. This is a command for Copilot. You can see there's also plenty of errors. They come from the Python LSP because obviously this is all incorrect. So let's see, if I open a new line, you can see that Copilot suggests implementation of Fibonacci. We're going to accept all the suggestions. So this function is done. Let's go to another function here and do the same. So now it says create a decorator to time function. So it does create a wrapper decorator, which is just an implementation. Same here. Here you can notice there's no comment, but Copilot is able to derive what we want to do from the previous functions and general flow of the program. So we just essentially do this, and here we say call each function and print. So we are calling two functions here, and let's see if it's going to work. So now we can save the file, open a new session here, and we can do Python. This file is called Copilot demo, and as we expected, we have a bunch of numbers because it's a Fibonacci sequence. So that's of course a trivial example and a bit contrived, but Copilot is getting better. So if you want to have auto-completion, I would suggest to split it into smaller chunks than maybe here. Do not autocomplete the whole functions. Understand what you want to do in a function, and then try to use Copilot to autocomplete. But as you can see, it works. And again, it's only going to get better. So that was auto-completion and Copilot with using the Copilot plugin in Neovim. It works in the background. You don't need to do anything, but I can also show you that you can go here, Copilot, and then if you put space, you can have various functions here, help, setup, so on. So if you, let's say, do help, you can see like, well, what's happening, what commands do you have. You can enable, disable, and so on and so forth. So you can find all the link to the plugins I'm talking about in the video description. All right, let's move on to the next use case, which is dynamically rewriting your code. So rather than having Copilot create something, we are actually already have code created, and we want to interact with this code either by rewriting parts of it or explaining, or essentially doing something specifically on the pieces of code. And here, where gp.nvim or the other plugin that I talked about earlier work really well, those are essentially chatting with your code and executing various operations. So here we can see we have on the bottom part here, I'm going to make it a little bit shorter, just a simple Node.js server running here, and this is just a simple Node.js app. So I can, for example, go here, and this function is showing me essentially various users. So I'm mocking up a user database. And here I can see this little to-do, make it 10 users and rename them to be from random Marvel movies. So what I can do, I can select the whole function. So this is for me VAF. Actually, before we do this, let's go and copy this comment. So again, VAF for selecting the whole function. I can do Ctrl-G and R, and you can see this little text box from ChatGPT. I can paste what I want from it, enter, and as you can see, it rewrites the function in place. So now when I save the file, you can see at the bottom, I have a constant runner here, and then indeed we have some names. I don't know if they are correct, whatever it did here with the names, but it actually changed the code in place. So you can see with this type of interaction, it's really, really useful plugin. This uses in the background an OpenAI API, but it can also use Ollama, it can use, I believe, Claude and others. So it expands, and as LLMs grow stronger, this plugin also grows stronger. So let's see if we can go a little bit higher, and what else can we do? So this would be our refactoring. So we can also copy this and just do the same. So essentially same process. It will refactor it. Whether it's better or not, I don't really know JavaScript that well, but at least we can see at the bottom it works. And here, for example, I can say explain how this function works. So in order to do this, I don't need to actually rewrite it. So let's copy this, and I can say like that. I can put Ctrl G, and you see at the bottom here, I have append, prepend, pop-up, or new window. So I can actually select pop-up and then explain this function in a pop-up. So this actually didn't work. I don't know why, but it should should explain the function rather than just create it. Maybe I have to copy it first. Let's copy this function and then do this. And then again, P for pop-up, explain this. No, didn't work. So as you can see, those things are not perfect and not always work, but there are plenty of options here that you can take advantage of. And this plugin is one of the plugins I use the most. So rewriting code in place, doing changes like formatting in Markdown files, this is pretty strong. All right, so let's move on to the next one. As I mentioned earlier, Ollama and the gen.nvim plugin, it essentially wraps an internal LLMs rather. So you can see here, Ollama list, I believe I have 3 plugins installed locally, and then I can use them internally within Neovim. So let's see how it works. So in this file, I can, for example, take, let's say, that, and I can go down to command line, do gen, and gen is the command that shows me all the things I can do with it. So one of the things that is kind of built into the plugin is make table. So I can do make table, and as you can see, this now starts on my machine. It takes quite some resources, so a lot of RAM and so on. It now started. The output is quite slow if we compare it to paid offerings from other plugins, but it does what it's supposed to do. It converts the text into a markdown table. Again, it's not perfect. There are some quirks here and there because of the model, but you can use it, and if you have a good PC, that should work as well. All right, so it also added here this line, which we don't need, but otherwise it is actually a markdown table, and you can use it for other things like the plugins that we've seen earlier. So one more thing I want to show you, it's not exactly a Neovim plugin, but it's something that I used quite a while. I have kind of love-hate relationship with this tool. On one hand, it's really powerful and it can help you with complex refactorings, but on the other hand, it's very easy to go wrong somewhere and kind of spend too much time trying to unwind errors rather than get help. But it might be as well me not using the tool correctly. So let's check it out. So here I have a file which is part of my AI project that essentially helps you with your Z shell or other shells and helps you create commands there. So now I can run the aider command. And as you can see, when I do this, it tells me which model I'm using behind the scenes. I'm using GPT-4o. Again, you can use various other models like Claude or local models. And then I can essentially chat with my code base. So we can see this file is in aicmd main.go. So I can add this file main.go, and there's this one. So now Aider is aware of this file. It is also aware of the whole repository. Behind the scenes, it's doing like a snapshot of all repository. You can read more about it on the Aider webpage. So now, since I have this file, you can see that we might want to maybe refactor this function, so main function, into a smaller function. So let's see how it does. I say, please, you have to, of course, be polite with those things. Refactor main. You can see that it also suggests the name of the function reading from the file into smaller functions. So what's happening now, it actually is going to create a Git diff. Aider works with code repositories, and this Git diff searches for things inside a file and then changes it. So if you can see now, indeed, we have main function was refactored. So we have still the same conditionals here, but instead of code in place, we have now various functions here. This thing doesn't look good. It's an infinite recursive call, and that's a mistake clearly. So as I mentioned earlier, there's quite a few things that Aider still doesn't get exactly right. There are certain classes of operations, like specifically on Markdown files, that are much better, or something more like refactoring. This probably is a little better, but as you can see, it's not always takes it correctly. All right, so let's undo it. So that was Aider. You can of course do much more with Aider. It probably deserves its own video. So far, this is the best open source coding assistant if you don't want to pay for it. So that's definitely a good choice. So a little bonus here. You've seen earlier I was using the gp.nvim plugin to change the code in place or create a pop-up, which didn't work, but the pop-up was there. This is also a plugin that provides a chat experience. So I can essentially have a Neovim buffer with a chat, and I can chat with my LLM. I've created this very simple bash function that can do two things. Can either open just a chat, and I can show you exactly this, or I can pipe to it a result of a command, which can be useful for various things. So let's switch to it. So we can, for example, say, maybe I want to pipe the result of the ls command. So I can do ls and then GPT, and you can see it opens this chat experience, and then it shows all the files. And right below, I can type, what is this project about? And then in my case, it's shortcut Ctrl-GG, and it sends it to ChatGPT. It says it doesn't have enough information, which is really amazing. I would wish that LLMs would produce such response much more often. I don't know, can you give more details? Rather than most of the time they just try to come up with something and hallucinate. But in this case, it worked exactly as it should. So as you can see, I was able to pipe essentially the output of a command using this GPT. I will leave a link to my .files where you can find this exact function if you want to use it. So I tried various chat plugins in command line, but at the end of the day, the chat inside of Neovim is just the best. You can use all Neovim functions and so on to make it better. All right, so let's conclude the whole demo. So we've seen various types of AI-assisted coding or workflows and how they integrate in Neovim. One thing I want to mention, definitely review the responses that AI give. This becomes more and more difficult because AI produce code faster and produce more code. So it's harder to review. What I try to do, I try to set up tests up front, and then I rely on tests and do kind of like test-driven development, and then I let AI generate code. But without tests, it just feels really frustrating to see that AI generates something that you don't fully understand. So that's definitely a challenge right now. definitely understanding the problem is very important. You should try to, excuse me, understand the problem first and then apply the tools, not the other way around. It's sometimes okay to use AI to help you understand the problem, but without doing it, kind of doing a black box style, it's possible, but I noticed that it just makes me too lazy and then I'm losing the context and everything goes down the drain from there. Again, AI is perfect for leveraging repetitive tasks and boilerplate code, specifically the tasks that are not completely deterministic, because otherwise you would just use scripts or your own Neovim skills to change a file or do something. But if there's not exactly 100% deterministic function that you can write about it, it's too much context dependent, then this type of boilerplate code is perfect for AI and definitely recommend using it there. And also use AI to explain complex code blocks, kind of learn the programming basics. Again, not to let AI understand the problem for you, but more like learn the basics, learn the syntax, and help you explain what was happening with the code. So that's it for today. We've seen how AI can help with AI-assisted coding in Neovim, and in my mind, to answer the question that we asked at the beginning, whether editors or Neovim specifically still have place in the era of AI, in my mind, they do. As long as we work with text in one form or the other, and everything that we interact with in editors is text, the text editors will be there. Now, those text editors will be augmented with AI. We will let AI do more tasks for us, hopefully more boilerplate, more repetitive tasks, and it will create abstraction on top of that. But editors are not going anywhere, and I am a firm believer that Neovim is definitely somewhere at the top of the editors that make you most productive. All right, that's it for today. As always, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching the video till the end. I hope you learned something about Neovim and AI. And yeah, see you in next video.